Welcome to the fifth episode of the Bjorn Pink Show. This is a show where we interview artists and activists from all walks of life, and more generally, people with something to say and something to do. If you're a good person, then you have an open invitation to come through anytime. Speaking of good people, I like to introduce you to Mr. Esau Pritchett. He's an actor in the greatest sense of the word. His theatrical credits include Power Book 3, Raising Canaan, Iron Fist, Law and Order, and most recently, The Awe-Inspiring Thoughts of a Colored Man, which had a great Broadway run. And those are just some of his theatrical credits. Mr. Pritchett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good.
If
Blessed
you
and
keep
highly
talking
favored.
about me like that, I'm gonna have to hire you as my PR person. Come on now.
Yes, I'm actually thinking about getting into public relations, so
All right,
all checks are welcome.
there you go. Amen. Say that.
Amen, sir. Uh, how did you get started in the business, Esau?
Well, it's interesting, man. Getting started in the business and getting started in the art were kind of two different things.
Mm,
When I was a kid, my parents were what do they call them now? I think the right wing calls them black identity extremists,
mm,
and what we call people who love ourselves.
mm,
So. Uh, in school, man, we would have Black History Month programs, anything that celebrated Blackness, our accomplishments, our achievements, dealing with being oppressed. My parents made sure that they put books in our hands, they put poetry in our hands, and I got involved in spoken word a bit. So
mm,
mainly it was maybe poems by Maya Angelou. I would do speeches by Dr. King, by Malcolm X. Um, and so that was my first attempt at being in front of audiences. But what my parents did, my mother especially, she had this idea that when you did something, that you had to have enough love and care for it, that you had to nurture it and cultivate it. So we couldn't get up, we couldn't hold a piece of paper and read a poem. You had to
mm,
memorize it word for word. You had to memorize it, work it, and you had to do it in a dramatic way. So I started doing that, like I said, because of my parents. And I got to the point where I just really loved doing it, man. I was doing it all over the place. And then that kind of went away. This was like middle school, high school. I wasn't involved in acting per se. I wasn't doing plays. And that wasn't until I got to college and kind of stumbled across the theater department by mistake. I wasn't a person who had seen a lot of plays, didn't know much about theater at all, but I got exposed to it in college and just like so many of us, man, just got bitten by that bug. Next thing I was changing my major from physical therapy, sports science to performing arts theater.
mm.
And that's how it began.
Wow, I have to follow that up. So you went from a physical therapy.
Yeah, brother, I was a bit of an athlete in high school. Believe it or not, this big, tall black brother was a swimmer,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was a competitive swimmer from the time I was 7 to 17.
Mm,
Ended up getting tinnitus real bad in both shoulders because my
mm.
plan was to go to college and swim on scholarship.
Yes, sir.
But once that was done, I still wanted to be involved somewhat in athletics. And I thought I had gone through physical therapy myself in high school for
Mm,
2 years. And my physical therapist, talked about physical therapy and how you could put that together with sports science and, maybe work with professional teams and whatnot. And that sounded, exciting at the time. I didn't really know what else I wanted to do. So when I
mm.
first went to school, I was majoring in physical therapy. Yeah, that's how it started.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, sir. You're a man who proudly represents Saginaw, Michigan.
Yes,
What type
sir.
of mm, what type of work ethic did Saginaw give you, and how has it shaped your artistic creativity?
Well, I don't know if you know, but Saginaw is a uh, old school blue collar town. So if
Mm.
you look at Detroit,
I went to school in Flint, Michigan for a year at University of
okay.
Michigan.
All right. So, I know you're a little bit younger than me, so things may have changed in terms of what was happening when you were in school and when I was coming up.
Yes,
But you
sir.
had towns like Flint, Saginaw, Pontiac, Detroit.
Mm.
These were all GM towns.
Yes, sir.
Most of the folks who were working there, my father included, worked for the big three. My father worked for GM. He was a
Mm.
skilled tradesman, an electrician,
Mm.
um, and he also worked in the foundry. When you worked those jobs, my brother, those were old who akin to coal mine type jobs. These are people who have to get up early and stay late. Fortunately, at that time, they were paying fairly well, pretty well, especially if you were somebody like my father who made that great migration from Alabama up here to the Midwest. And all of a sudden you got a union job where you can raise a family, you can, have a mortgage, those types of things. But you had to work. You had to work. And that was just so much a part of the culture. It was just natural, man. Everything that you needed, everything that you wanted, everything that you wanted to be competent in, you worked for it. And it wasn't even a big deal. It was just a part of the ideology. So, and another thing that happened, I think there in Saginaw, when I was coming up, man, we were in this sweet spot. We had all these beautiful people. I went through public schools. Mm-hmm. And many of my school teachers were Black female women who had gone to school in the South, to college, gotten their college degrees. But at that time, most of their aspirations, because of what was happening here, could not go beyond being, say, a teacher, that type of profession. So we were lucky to have these brilliant Black women that in any given time, maybe not that particular time, they could have been professionals anywhere. They could have been professors, they could have been politicians, they could have been whatever, because they were that intelligent. However, they were, I don't want to say relegated, but to a certain extent they were, of this ceiling for being Black women as teachers. However, the great thing was we had all these great teachers, all these great minds teaching us, in school. So a really, really robust education in grammar school, man. They prepared us like, hey, we went to school and we just didn't go to school and be in school. We went to school and we learned. We got prepared. We got prepared for a secondary education. I'm so blessed because of that. And I don't know, I haven't been home in a very long time if that's still the case. But when I was there, that's certainly the case.
Nah, that's deep. Unfortunately, I feel like because I'm kind of I've just become an adjunct and I'm teaching a 10th grade cohort, and I'm not sure if that's going to sound horrible, but I'm not sure if the standards are still the same.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I've heard. I agree. That's why I say to myself, man, we came up in a sweet spot. We came up in a sweet spot where public education, at least where I was top notch from my grammar school, especially grammar school.
Yeah. When I first started in the business, I wrestled with whether I was a Black actor or just an actor. How do you identify?
Well, if we lived in a vacuum, which we do, then we would all be just actors.
Yes, sir.
But we don't, we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist where we exist. We exist here. We exist in the West. So many of the plays that we're going to be doing are going to be Western literature. They're going to be plays written by Western folk, for Western folk, controlled by Western folk, directed by Western folk. So yes, you become Black real quick. You know what I mean? You are who you are.
Yes.
My thing was, how do I put this? Culturally and aesthetically, many different people move, speak, act differently based on where you're from, right? Based on what cultural influences that you have.
Yeah.
There's not much that I can do to take that out of who I am, because if I did, then, who would I be? So I always identify as an actor, but I identify as a Black actor. For instance, if I'm doing a play, say I'm doing The Crucible and I'm playing John Proctor, it is not me playing a white man, because I ain't white. It's this Black man playing John Proctor. So there's a certain type of way that we move and we speak and we gesture that's not going to be eliminated, right? And there ain't no way that you're not going to be able to tell that my 6'6", 250-pound Black behind ain't Black, right?
Yes,
you have these people who say things like, I don't see color. Well, you out your mind. You got you. Ain't no way you're going to see me walk in anywhere and not see I'm Black, right?
Yeah.
Embrace it, man. I embrace who we are. I embrace the swag that we have. Like I said before, I always understand that I'm not Esau Pritchett playing a white man. I'm Esau Pritchett, a Black actor playing a role. And part of that role obviously encompasses the aesthetic of my Blackness, which I'm fine with. in which
Yeah.
I carried with me always. All the time.
No, that was great. I've actually never heard an actor put it in such concise and relatable terms. It's like you start with your blackness, then you go to the role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, because you can't eliminate who you are. And I understand that when you're playing a character, you're playing someone else, but there's always some you in there too. You just
Hmm.
can't eliminate all you. That it just doesn't work that way. If you did that, and I don't think that would work either. But clearly, I identify as a son of Africa. I identify as a person who represents Black people. So there was never much of a struggle there for me. It was a struggle for other folks. I mean, there were times I remember I'd be in a particular play and I might be being directed, and I think that certain elements of maybe the way I moved or spoke or where my voice comes from, my chest,
Mm.
that folks who were used to directing other people who moved differently, spoke differently, would try to get me to do that. And I would always be like, no, if you want that cat, go hire that cat. You got
Mm.
this guy. Yeah.
Thank you. What I mean, you have so many credits. What's been your favorite show to work on, and for what reason?
Oh man, that's always tough, brother. It's like because they're so very different. I've
Mm.
done so many different things. I will say that the most recent thing that I did, Thoughts of a Colored Man on Broadway, by
Mm.
Keenan Scott II. Steve Broadnax directed, and it was just a love affair, man. It
Mm.
was a love affair with us telling a story about us, without having to worry about the oversight of anyone else, or
Mm.
not doing it in a space where we're trying to figure out how can we communicate with some people outside of us. And we decided that that wasn't what we were trying to do, that we were simply trying to tell a story about us, for us, and that can be for anyone else as well. But we were going to tell it authentically. We did it in a space of love and appreciation and brotherhood, man. It was just beautiful. So all things considered, I would consider that my favorite work so thus far in my career.
Mm. Yeah, I remember because we're friends on Facebook, and I just remember looking at those pictures, and once you get past all the celebrities and stuff, it just seemed
Mhm.
like a really profound. Sometimes we can fake it in this business, but
Yeah,
you all seem so genuinely happy and ecstatic.
yeah, we had a great brotherhood in that production, man, and it all started with day one in rehearsal and how the tone was set by our director,
Mm.
about how we were going to approach it, how we were going to support each other and love each other. And we talked about we don't care what type of show you've been in before, what type of experience you've had before. Um, we starting something new here. We're going to do it different. And it was
Mm.
really, really um, actor
Mm.
based on how we felt in the space, what we wanted to do, how we wanted to make sure that we honored even all of the differences between us brothers and respect each other. And we started that off, with that idea, that ideology in mind to approach the project. And I think it was a successful way to do it. A lot of love.
I actually interviewed Mr. Ron Simmons, one
Okay.
of the producers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just doing
Producers.
my little thing, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Yeah.
He's such a good brother. And
Yeah.
if I could just talk to you real quick about how was it the day that the writer, is it Mr. Keenan Scott?
Keenan Scott said, yeah. Keenan
Yeah.
Scott.
What was it like when he had to jump in and actually fulfill the role that he wrote? Like,
Well, I can only tell from hearsay because I wasn't there. He had
yeah.
to jump in and fill the role for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just before Christmas, we were testing for COVID almost, it was like 4 times a week. And that particular day, I showed up for rehearsal, feeling fine. I'm fine. I go over do our normal test. I actually test positive. They
Oh,
send me back again to make sure it wasn't a false positive. Sure enough, I test positive. This is maybe an hour before curtain. Yeah, so I had to go home. So I had to leave and come home and isolate for 10 days.
yeah.
And so if you can imagine it's an hour before curtain, you got people have shown up. People are going out to dinner, getting ready to come to the show. You got people in line. And I guess my brother Keenan was like, you know what? Y'all go grab me something, go grab me some costumes, whatever. I'm gonna jump on here and do this. I heard it was fabulous, man. I heard it was just, and especially because the audience, honestly, I think felt great about the fact that here we were trying to do this show in the middle of a pandemic, right? Which is crazy as it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were trying to do it, not only trying to do it, we were doing it.
Yeah.
And they understood the gravity of one of the actors, because this was happening all over Broadway. Shows were shutting down. They were closing because people would test positive and, you know, you had to stop. And the fact that the playwright himself was able to pick up the script and go out there on stage and, you know, obviously other brothers helping him out and get that. I'm blown away by that still. Yeah. I would have been a person in the audience who could have seen it. And I've heard about it. And I heard that people just had a fantastic time. And also, they knew that they were witnessing something that was historic, right? Because that's not been done. And that particular show that they saw was quite unique in the fact that they had to watch the Broadway machine or the people, you know, doing what we do, figure out a way to keep the show going. And they were able to figure that out. And that was all about Keenan just having the guts to say, hey, no, we're not going to cancel the show. Give me the script. I'll go on as Wisdom, my character. So that's amazing. Amazing.
And he also wrote it. So
he also wrote it. But I tell you, brother, there's one thing to write it and another thing to perform it, you know?
Yeah.
You would think perhaps that if you'd written something, then you would have it all memorized. No. First of all, you're making changes all the time. You know, changes. And it's a completely different animal, writing something and then performing what you've written. So that's still, that's a beast of a job.
Yeah. Kudos to Keenan and, you know, all the others that helped. Yeah. If you could change anything about the acting business, whether it be in the past or the future, what would you change?
If I could change anything about the acting business, I don't know, brother. I don't know how much we can change about the business, because the business is on the capital side of things, and capitalism is what it is, right? It affects the art sometimes in a negative way. If I could change anything about the business of acting, I would wish that it was not so influenced by the business. That's kind of foolhardy, because then how does the business work? You know, I don't know, man. I'm not really on that side of things. I've thought about it and tried to knock it around in my head and realize that sometimes I'm punching above my weight, because my head really is focused around the artistry of it. If I was better at the business of this business, then I'd be doing a whole lot better in this business. My mind sometimes, for better or for worse, is more focused on the art of acting and my own personal process and telling stories, you know. So yeah, I wish the business would give us the opportunity to do that better, with more preparation, more time, and more respect for the artist process. I wish the business would do that. But that's some wishful thinking right there.
Yes, thank you. One thing that popped into my head while you were speaking, I don't know if you can relate, but the word sacrifice popped into my head. And it almost sounds like, because you're more focused on the art, you've had to make sacrifices that actors who are more focused on the business might not have to make.
Yeah, one of the things I've always worried about, man, is making sure that you remain genuine and true to yourself, right? That's important to me, inside of acting, outside of acting, just as a man. And there are going to be things that you say no to, because I say to myself, is this something that I really want to do, or is this a project I'm doing just because I have to? And sometimes you do. Sometimes, man, you have to make decisions about working on a job because it's a paycheck and you need that paycheck.
Yeah.
I remember as a very, very young actor, fresh out of undergrad, I had been offered an opportunity to audition for, I don't know if you know that, you probably do, the show. I think it was Oz at the time. I'm not sure. So one of those shows.
Yeah, the prison.
Okay. Prison, right. which is fine, man. I'm not
Yeah,
running.
yeah, it's fine. No offense to people in Princeton. Yeah,
Right, right. No, yeah, no offense to no offense to anyone.
yeah, no
But
offense to anyone.
here's what got me.
Yeah,
So I've been to an acting competition, which I always find extraordinary because I don't even know what that's about. But there I was in college,
yeah.
and I had done a scene from Othello, and I did a monologue from a play called "I'm a Man," where I played a black civil rights. Well, the story was about a black civil rights leader, and I was in it as a militant. And actually, no, I did the monologue from "I'm a Man" from T.O. Jones, the civil rights leader.
Hmm.
So some people had seen that, and they had decided to give me a call and give me an opportunity to audition
Hmm.
for this role on TV. And of course, I'm like blown away. I'm brand new to the game. I'm excited about it. But there was something that stuck in my head and rung in my head the way it was, the way I was approached by it. The people who were asking me to audition for were really excited. They were like, "Yeah, we've got something perfect for you." Now, it turns out that this brother had gone to prison for raping and murdering some white woman or something like that. And this whole notion that, hey, we got something perfect for you, brother. Y'all just saw me do a scene from Othello. You
Yes,
just
sir.
saw me do a monologue from the civil rights leader, T.O. Jones. And the
Yes,
thing
sir.
that's perfect for me is to play a murderer and a rapist. I ain't above it. I'm an actor. I play it all. But
Yeah.
something about that then at that time told me, he said, no, you know what? No, I'm not going to play any of those roles until
Yes, sir.
I get to the point where I understand that in this business and industry, I will be able to play other kinds. When I can do that, let's go. I'll just be an actor and play whatever. But it didn't feel right. It just didn't sit with me right. And it felt
Mm.
like, hey, these are going to be the roles that you're going to be offered. Um, everybody's going to tell you you're perfect for them. Everybody's going to tell you that you're crazy for not taking it. And I decided I was going to tell everybody to kiss my behind. And I wasn't doing it that way. Yeah. Stubborn, brother.
Nah,
Can't help
that's
it.
fine. I'm suffering too. But then it begs the question. I wonder what career trajectory you would have had you maybe taken that role and been.
Yeah, and who knows? It may not have had any effect.
Mm,
Matter of fact, it might have, lifted my career to another place as far as I'm concerned. But what I try to tell young people, and I'm always a little bit uh, reluctant to give advice,
yes,
but
sir.
I will give this piece of advice. If it don't feel right, at the end of the day, after you do all of your calculations about what and why and if it just doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's not right and not right for you. That's it. Yeah. There were a
Yeah.
lot of people who were in opposition to the fact that I had made that decision. There were
Yeah.
people who were, what are you talking about? There were people who accused me, I believe, oh, you must be afraid or scared. They were coming from every angle. I was just like, you know what? No, this ain't fun. It's
Mm,
not gonna feel right.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And then last question on that: do you think if you had played that, however you want to characterize that role, do you think your family's view of you would have changed?
My family's what?
View of you?
No, absolutely not. Because my family, they know who I am.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's they know that I'm an actor. They see me playing some of these crazy folks on TV and different people who have no relation to who Esau is, playing police officers, corrections officers, all
Gotcha.
types. They know and
Yeah,
understand who I am.
yeah,
There could have been some members of my family who just didn't like it. They didn't like, especially knowing who I am, what I'm able to play, and then
yeah.
seeing, there you go, he's relegated to doing that when he can do so much more. That might have been a part of it, yeah.
What's been one of the most profound lessons that the acting business has taught
It's a business.
you? Mm,
It's a business, and you can't even be too hard on the people who are part of the business because at the end of the day, there's what we do is the art, and there is the business. And
mm,
sometimes the people on the business side of things might not even might not, are not trying to be malicious in how they're handling the business, but it is still a business. Sometimes we as artists get so caught up in what we want, what we feel, the art of it, and not understand that that's great and everything. But there's this business side of things that has to, and it's not personal, it's not perfect, but there's a business aspect to it that sometimes might not be that favorable to you as an
Mm-hmm.
artist. And you got to be able to at least understand that, um, work against it if you have to, when you have to, if you think it really takes away from uh, what you're trying to do as an artist. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, recognize that there has to be some understanding, man, that, listen, for instance, we were doing our show on Broadway. We had a bunch of independent producers. We're not Disney. You know, Disney can do a show on Broadway, but Disney's an umbrella company. They don't have to make money on that show at any given time,
Mm-hmm.
right? They got backing. So if something, say with COVID, happens with them, they can shut down. They can shut down for weeks as long as they need to. They can always come back because they've got the business model where they can do it. A show
Mm-hmm.
like ours, you know, I think at our peak we were grossing somewhere around 800,000 a month. So we're coming in almost a million a month.
Mm-hmm.
We were the highest grossing uh, non, well, I think new play on Broadway at some point.
Wow.
But we couldn't absorb those losses. Our business model couldn't do it. We couldn't
Oh.
go for a week or two with no shows and not have that income and still be able to survive, you know, in the business market. So you could never look at the producers or people who were producing the show and say, oh, that's awful. And they let us know. No, that's the business model. We all understood that going in. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things like that happen and you can't be looking around being upset with the producers or the people on the business side of things because that's not their fault. That's just the way, you know, it's an act of God, COVID-19 coming through or Omicron or whatever it was to shut us down. Um, and have recognize, there you go. That's business. You're on Broadway. It costs to be there. And you've got
Mm-hmm.
to produce in order to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. As we evolve in the business, what place is there for the troubled actor? I'm not talking about an actor who participates in criminal behavior or anything of the sort. I'm speaking more to an actor that might need mental health counseling, but in the meantime uses acting as a sort of therapy in the way some musicians use music as their sole outlet. Is that too convoluted of a question?
Well, ask me again. So I want to make sure I know exactly the question you're asking.
So basically, you know, as artists, as actors, even musicians or whatever, we have unfortunately sometimes a bad reputation in terms of being troubled.
Yeah.
But as society advances, certain behaviors and characteristics are utterly unacceptable. They should have always been unacceptable.
Yeah.
But where unfortunately evolution takes a little time for some
Right.
people to catch up to. So, is there a place for the troubled artist or actor, or do they need to like first work on their mental health?
You know, I don't know if I can speak on the individual artist about. I think that everybody first needs to work on their mental health, right? If they have mental health issues.
Yes,
I
sir.
think another thing is that one of the reasons why it seems that we may be more troubled, actors, musicians, because people are high profile, right? You get to the
Hmm.
high profile people, you get into celebrities, so you get into people who are more visible. So
Hmm.
we're more visible than the average person, but I would say that we're probably no more or less troubled than the average person, with the exception of the additional trouble and stress brought on by celebrity
Yes.
and being high profile. So I think the biggest issue is that as a culture and a society, we are a lot of times much more tolerant of, say, famous actors and musicians and people that you love and they move you in the arts. Um, and we tend to give them more of a pass than we would the average person. To
Yeah.
me, that's the problem. And that's that kind of that pedestalization um, of of celebrity,
Hmm.
famous people, high profile people that I think that we as a culture especially suffer from. And that's why, I think I talked about this earlier, where I was always trying to make sure that, hey, man, I want you to live in a genuine space. Please, I don't want nobody to pedestalize you. or Pritchett, think I got it all figured out, but I'm
Mm,
just as human, just decidedly human as anybody else. And sometimes that's difficult because people won't let you.
mm,
They won't let you be human. You know what I mean? They won't. They want you to be the spokesperson for everything that there is, and for you to have this evolved understanding of everything, and you don't.
mm,
Don't. You're just as as at times feckless and decidedly human as everybody else. So I do think that there's always going to be a space for the trouble actor. Maybe those of us who recognize uh, people who are troubled need to spend more time engaging those people and making sure that they get some help instead
mm.
of wrapping our arms around them and celebrating when they behave crazy.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
that. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. Thank you. On a lighter note, can you please tell me about one of your funnier on-set experiences?
Funnier onset experiences. I was doing Othello
Mm,
at the Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park. And if you know the play, at the very end, after Othello, he kills Desdemona because he thinks that she's been cheating on him. Then he finds out the truth that it's all been a setup and a lie. He commits suicide.
mhm,
So this great director and I, Ed Stern, who's no longer with us, rest in peace, brother, um, had come up with this idea that I would always wear this wooden cross around my neck.
mhm,
But actually, the wooden cross actually was a pull-out dagger, right? So at
mhm,
the end of the play, when if I get finished smacking about, oh my God, I'm stupid, I'm crazy, so I can pull this out and then commit suicide.
mhm,
Now, at some point, I come out in the last scene, and I'm in the middle of this one of Othello's famous monologues, and I got like pages and pages to go by, pages to go.
mhm,
And at some point, my hand comes up here, and I realize I don't have this thing on.
mm,
I don't. How am I going to kill myself?
mm,
So I'm trying to stay focused with all this monologuing I got, all these people I got to talk to, and still trying to figure out how I'm going to kill myself at the end of the play. And I also noticed that some of my actors noticed too. And some of
mm,
them are upstage facing me. And I can see the look on their face like, what are we going to do?
mm,
Um, so that part of it actually was hilarious to me because I'm one of those dudes that sometimes when situations happen like that, when it's fraught with anxiety and danger, absurdly, it's funny to me.
mm,
So I'm trying to figure this thing out. I'm trying to make sure I got my lines coming out, memorizing everything, man. And finally, at the last moment, I just have this thought. There's a soldier in the room standing before me. I jump at my good brother. I grab him by the chest. I grab his sword, pull it out. And I've never done one of these fake stabs before, but I did it that night. And I do this thing and I shove it through, you
mhm,
know, and pull it out and throw it down. And the actors who are facing upstage, they're actually giggling a bit, like you lucky. Oh, how'd you figure? I'm like, now I got to die. And I got some old smack, you know how in Shakespeare, you didn't halfway there, but you still talk, just speaking beautiful language while dying.
right.
So I still had to do that, and I had to keep a straight face while doing it. So I don't know how funny it was to everybody else, but for
Mhm,
me, it was very funny.
gotcha. Brilliant, brilliant. Uh, we're shifting back to more serious topics. Uh, we all saw the infamous slap at this year's Oscars. How has
Yeah,
it? Yeah, I won't touch it too heavy, but
yeah.
how has your view of the incident changed or shifted from when you first heard about it or saw it?
How much of the? So I wasn't watching the Academy Awards. I normally don't.
Yes, sir.
Um, I heard about it when I first heard about it. I just assumed that it was, Will Smith, Chris Rock, two big stars, both funny, charismatic guys. They probably had some little setup that they were doing to shock the audience, and that it was a bit. When I
Mm,
saw it, brother, I'm a person who's been on stage, who has been involved in hundreds of stage slaps, right? So when I
mhm,
first saw that, I recognized, oh no, that was no bit. He slapped that
mhm,
brother in the rib. And I just tell you, man, I was sad and disappointed.
mhm,
That's it. It was I'm not gonna even get into Chris Rock's joke, because to me that's irrelevant. You don't slap a man like that. Uh, I told people that I have no desire to cancel Will Smith. I have been watching this brother since he was, 17 years old. There's never been any evidence of him being some type of violent, reactionary person. When he finally had his moment of emotional snap, um, it played out for everybody around the world. And it was sad and it hurt me. But at the same time, understand he had a human moment. I'm not going to cancel him, but I think we all need to be clear about what's proper, what's right, and what's wrong. And brother, you're wrong. You're just wrong to get up there and slap another man in the face like that. We have to, and then to get back to Chris Rock, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it because so many of us aren't thinking it, right? And we've talked about it. Kudos to that brother, man. I don't know what type of intestinal fortitude and understanding and being able to react in that moment of high drama and still maintain that level of professionality, understanding that to react any other way, you're going to take the show off the rails, right? It's not going to be helpful for anyone. Only thing it's going to do is be more harmful to everybody. To be able to process all of that in that moment and do what he did, it's just extraordinary. I give that brother props and kudos, and my man, that's some real man right there, as far as I'm concerned. Now that being said, we'd have tore that place up. You understand me? If it had been me and the brother slapped me across, I don't think I would have been able to react like that. The show would have gone off the rails. Furniture would have been moving. Security would have been. You know what I'm saying? It's just, no. So I'm gonna leave that there. Even again, not trying to be coming from some macho place, just an understanding of human behavior. Man, listen, a slap is not designed to hurt you. It's designed to humiliate you, right? That's what it's designed to do. And most times, your natural ego as a person, man, woman, or otherwise, you're going to respond differently to something like that. And I'm pretty sure that if I got raped across the beak like that, even under those circumstances, we going back to Saginaw. We're going old school. It's like, no. No.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you for those views. Any advice for actors coming up in the game?
Woo! Man, this question right here, I always struggle with this question. Because I never want to put my young performers, set them in a direction that they might not necessarily need to go. The only thing I can say is there's a certain level of commitment that you have to it and a certain level of want that you have to have. The way that you get there is so diverse. So many people get there differently. Some people get there when they're young. Some people get there when they're old. Some people struggle for years and years and years. Some people make it immediately. So I just think that there's so many different tributaries for how you can get to be an actor who performs, an actor who makes a living doing it. Hopefully you have a love for it. Hopefully whatever sacrifices you make to do it are not so great that you lose your soul on the way to doing it, right? And hopefully you're able to pursue it without animosity for how it turns out. Nobody makes this decision but you. As an actor, I've been up, I've been down, I've been underpaid, I've been, paid well. There's so much that's going on. But at the end of the day, I always tell myself, this isn't the only thing that I could have done. I did this because I wanted to. I understood it would be difficult. I understood that it's not, a normal way that people make their money. But I love it. I want to do it. I get up every morning generally when I'm working on my craft, and I'm not mad about going to work. I'm excited about going there. There's a trade-off, to doing that. But I always thought that if I'm going to live this life, let me try to live it doing something that I love to do. And as long as I keep my head in the right space, keep my set of values around me, keep my, my ethics and my morals clear, and don't compromise any of that, then bring it on. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to my success actually by how many shows I do or how high profile they are or how famous I get or how much money I make. I'm going to basically see my success as, hey man, you did what you wanted to do. You survived doing it, and you kept yourself intact. The best version of you that you want to have in your head, you were able to swim there and stay in that space, and this didn't stop you.
Mm. I think you mentioned something really profound. I'll just touch on that real quick before we wrap up.
All right.
I think it's interesting. You mentioned animosity, and I think some of it stems from like how we're all viewing the world in some ways through social media now, and it seems like everything is instantaneous. But to really make it in this business, as in a lot of businesses, but especially as an entertainer and a performer, you need to really put time into your craft and find mentors and teachers who will enable you. I mean, enable you in a good way.
Yeah, right, in a good way, right. And I also think, man, it's about what your goals are.
Yeah.
I tell people this a lot of times, and people have a tendency to be surprised. It was never my goal to be on Broadway. It was never my goal to be on TV. It was never my goal to be a star, man. I stumbled into the theater arts in college and found something that moved me and that I loved. And I just couldn't get enough of. So the whole idea, like I wasn't a film buff or TV person or a person who grew up watching theater, none of that stuff. I wasn't coming from it from the outside. I was coming to it from the inside of just the stimulation that I got from being an artist and performer that I loved. And then all these other things begin to happen. I'm like, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to do next. I'm supposed to go and work at the biggest theaters. I'm supposed to do this and get paid more money. Those were never any of my goals. They were not. This whole notion of being famous and being high profile. All that stuff came as a consequence of focusing on the craft. And then when those things come into play, that's a whole nother ballgame that you got to now think about. Because again, those weren't my goals. Not at all.
Thank you. We're about done. Any last words for my viewers?
Let me see. Y'all just keep on listening to my boy Bjorn. Bjorn is special. I can tell. We met a couple of times. This is a brother who will reach out. This is a brother who is clearly, by the questions that you're asking me, doing a lot of searching, right, about this particular business, how to get through it, and how to survive it. And I believe you also trying to share it with other people, which is one of the most important things that you can ever do, I think, in any discipline, is to go through a certain level of going down the path, learning things and saying, hey, other folk who's on the way, this is what I've learned as well, right? Let me throw you back some of these tools, okay? Because I've been here. You grab a hold of these and this might help you. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, man. This is fantastic. I don't give many of these out, brother. I just don't. I am kind of really private and really don't do a lot of interviews. It's just something that I don't do. But for whatever reason, you got me here. So y'all keep watching this, but that's my thing.
Thank you, sir. That really means a lot to me because every actor isn't necessarily wanting to do interviews.
No, right. And there are a lot who are. You know what I mean? But sometimes even I have to be reminded, and I think you reminded me of this today. Like I said before, one of the tough questions that I get asked is what my advice is. I'm like, man, they tell you, we have me giving y'all no advice. Don't be, that I have to stop and think and say, listen, whatever information you're able to provide could be helpful. Stop worrying about whether people going to take your words and run with them and do something dangerous. And think about the fact that you may be able to help folks just with some of the information, the experience you picked up along the way. I mean, look at it from a positive perspective.